We're back today with another updated leveling guide for patch 1.1 for Last Epoch. In today's video we'll show off one of the quickest and easiest ways to level the Necromancer Mastery from levels 1 to 80. The build we're using here is a fire minion setup where we overwhelm the enemy with a ton of minions, and this leveling setup actually runs really nice into an endgame build as well. Now with patch 1.1 for the game we had some nice buffs to the health of our skeleton mages and regular skeletons, so this makes running this build even easier. Now let's go in and let's start breaking it all down. We start off here with a general progression infographic then, and this setup really is simple. There are 0 skill swaps with this. Level 2 you will use summon skeletons and you can press A to direct where they go and where they attack. At level 4 you'll spec into summon skeletons and you have the option of adding wandering spirits as an additional early damage layer. Same applies for bone curse at level 7. It's not mandatory but you can add it in there because you've got space on your bar. Level 8 you'll spec into summon bone golem and of course you'll put that on your bar so you can then summon it. Level 16 you unlock the Necromancer Mastery. You want to add summon volatile zombie as your main spender. You then add summon skeleton mage when you have 5 points into the Necromancer Mastery. At level 20 you'll spec into summon skeletal mage. At level 35 you'll spec into summon volatile zombie. You'll add dreadshade to your bar when you have 30 points in the Necromancer Mastery, and then finishing up the progression at level 50 you'll spec into dreadshade. So nice and simple there. Let's go in, let's talk about the stat priority for this build and also leveling gear you want to keep an eye out for. For this section here then we'll run over useful leveling gear that you want to keep an eye out for, and also based on feedback from previous videos we'll have a quick breakdown of some priority stats that can help with this build. Stat priority wise then these are all pretty self-explanatory. You have intelligence, that will give your minions both health and damage. You have minion damage, you also want to go for minion fire damage. In regards to defense of course you go for minion health. Pretty self-explanatory as mentioned. Vitality can be nice here, it'll give you additional health, but through a node we use it can actually give your minions some armour as well. And then finally movement speed can be great. Your minions will be the meat shields, they'll be taking all the damage, so movement speed allows you to move out the harder hitting attacks and place yourself in a way so your minions are in front of you doing all the damage and really taking all the damage as well. For the leveling gear here we start off with useful weapons. So we've got Reach of the Grave, equipable at level 5, it gives you up to 120% extra spell and bow damage. Your minions will leech a portion of the damage they do, and also they gain increased bow and cast speed. So this is fantastic, you can probably use it all the way up to level 80. The next item we have here is a set one. This is Pebble's Femur, equipable at level 30. Most of the implicits and modifiers don't really benefit us, however if you have 3 pieces of this particular set, the free set bonus is really pretty amazing. So with this your summon skeleton spells and attacks deal plus 42 fire, cold or lightning damage. The actual element they'll use will depend on your lowest elemental resistance, so essentially you want to have low fire resistance, and then this means your skeletons will gain an additional 42 flat fire damage, which is a huge amount. For the helmet slot here we don't really have any uniques that stand out, so I'd personally recommend keeping an eye out for the Heretic Cowl. Equipable at level 46, this will give you increased critical strike chance for yourself, more importantly critical strike chance for your minions as well. For the amulet slot we have the Death Rattle. This is equipable at level 36. With this you get increased minion damage, minion critical strike chance, and a whopping up to 65% minion critical strike multiplier, and then finally up to 10 intelligence as well. For the body armour, early game you have the Doublet of Honest Hill, equipable at level 5, and this will give you your minions a chance to bleed on hit, so with multiple skeletons your bleed stacks can really add up. For the belt slot we have the second piece of the Pebbles set, so this particular one will help you get the free set bonus, but it's actually got an increase in minion damage, intelligence and flat melee fire damage as well. We have 5 different options here for the ring slot. The first one, Trusty Arboreal Circuit, equipable at level 31. If you have 2 of these it can give you an additional 36% movement speed, and max roll on minion armour, if you had 2 of them it would be 1800 armour as well. We then have a new ring with patch 1.1. This is a Phantom Grip, equipable at level 6. It's a common drop, so easy to get. It is designed really for the Forge Guard, but this setup can use it as well because it will give you +2 to the level of minion skills, as well as a flat 4% minion critical strike chance. To get that at level 6 is really pretty nice. We then have another new ring here, the Carcination of Momentum, equipable at level 23. This isn't going to be amazing, but if you're looking for another minion, then you can get it via this. When you use Evade, you actually summon a crab instead, and it will give you increased minion armor as well. It's a bit of a novelty item, but I figured it would be fun to put it in here. The next ring we have here is Hollow Finger. This will give you increased minion damage, minion health, minion critical strike multiplier, and on top of that you can summon an additional minion with it as well. This is equipable at level 31. Finishing up the ring slot here, we have Ribbons of Blood. There's various buffs to your minions with this one. The reason I recommend it is the bottom modifier. With this your minions cannot be crit. That really helps out their survivability. Moving on to the boots here, we have another new item from patch 1.1. This is a Flight of the Quetzeri. These will give you some additional movement speed and haste, which for early game when you're going through the stages can really help out. An alternative way to gain some additional movement speed early game is the Advent of the Erased, equipable at level 16, and you have a chance to gain haste when a nearby enemy dies. And on top of that as well, if you have max rolls on your implicit and your modifier, it will give you an additional 20% movement speed. Finishing up the gear here, we have the Relic slot and the Pebbles collar. This will give you the free set bonus for the Pebbles set with that additional 42 flat fire damage. It also gives you some intelligence and minion damage. We'll have a quick look here now with some idols you want to keep an eye out for. The small idol can provide you with up to 8% increased minion fire damage. With the stout idol you can gain increased health and up to 17% increased fire damage. For the Grand Idol we have 2% critical strike chance for your skeletons and 2% critical strike chance for your skeleton mages. The Adorned Idol will give you up to 38% increased minion critical strike chance. Large Idol offers 27% increased minion critical strike chance. And then finishing up with the Huge Idol here, we have Damage Reflect for your skeletons and skeleton mages, as well as up to a whopping 40% increased minion critical strike chance. Now to finish up here, quick infographic that just shows off the stat priority and the leveling gear you want to keep an eye out for as well. Now the next section, this will be all about the blessings. With patch 1.1 we've seen a really nice change to the blessing system. It now acts as a library, giving you far easier access to your blessings and also for you to be able to swap them. So for that reason I'll cover the monoliths that have stat boosts and the stat you want to keep an eye out for. From Fall of the Outcast you want to go for experience. From the Black Sun I would recommend health. From End in the Storm I would recommend mana. This allows you to use more of your summon volatile zombie, otherwise they'll eat through your mana pretty quick. From Reign of the Dragons we have minion all resistances. The Age of Winter would be increased armor, and then finally Spirits of Fire will give you increased minion damage. So that's the blessings. Let's talk about the passive point allocation now. For this passive breakdown then we'll use the awesome Last Epoch tools. There is a link to the point allocation in the description below, and you can see down the bottom here you can actually check out the order that I would allocate the points. For the purpose of this video though, we'll just run over the nodes we're putting points into. We have 8 points into Forbidden Knowledge, gives us intelligence, and that in turn will give us damage and health for our minions. It also gives us increased necrotic resistance. 7 points into Stolen Vitality, that's 7 vitality and increased minion health. 5 points into Dark Rituals, it increases our minions' attack and cast speed, and then 1 point into Soul Ages. So with this your minions gain additional armor per level. Just very quickly here we have the Warlock tree. I only have 2 points in this because this is all I had spare, but if you have more points then you'd want to max this one out because it's giving you increased fire damage for your minions. For the Necromancer tree then, we have the bulk of our points going into this. We have Risen Army, 8 points gives us increased minion damage as well as increased minion attack and cast speed. We have 1 point into Blood Armour, allowing us 5 points into Mortal Tether, which allows us 1 point into Unbound Necromancy. That's what we're aiming for. It gives us an additional skeleton. We have 3 points into Cursed Blood, which allows us to max out Aegis Fall. I notice here I've only put 7 points into it. I can't actually be bothered respeccing an entire 93 points due to this, so you'll want to max this out and take 1 point out of Warlock, just so you've got this maxed here, but it gives you minion armor shred, which is fantastic. We have 1 point into Mark of Punishment, so there's a chance to mark nearby enemies on minion death. We have 1 point into Dark Retribution, so that'll give you your skeleton vanguards. It's up in the number of minions you have. 5 points into Effigies. There'll be a chance when your health is low you consume a minion low. Your health really shouldn't be low. Gives you some really nice bonuses for the downside of consuming the minion. You've got increased minion fire damage and increased minion bow damage, so we're double dipping on that on our skeleton archers. We have 3 points into Tyrant and then 1 point into Tyrant's Legion for an additional skeleton here. 10 points into Moonlight Pyre, it's flat minion fire damage. 3 points into Rite of Undeath allows us to put 1 point into Disciples of Necromancy, gives us an additional skeleton mage. And then moving up here we've got Frantic Summons, so increased minion attack speed and cast speed. We have River of Bones, you can see you've got various different buffs for your minions there, including minion critical strike chance, a whopping 100%. And then finishing up we've got Heresy, so 10 intelligence, that's a nice boost to your minions, and minion critical strike chance as well. Now the next section will break down the skills that we specialise into. Our first specialised skill then will be Summon Skeleton, and down the bottom here you've got all the progression, so we'll just quickly cover the nodes and why we're choosing them. 3 points into Unholy Rage gives us attack speed, cast speed and movement speed for our skeletons. 1 point into Lone Guardian gives us increased crit chance, and then 1 point into Mightier Than the Sword means that we only have bow skeletons, that's the ones we want. Fire Arrow changes the arrow type to fire, not surprisingly. We have 3 points into Multi-Shot to fire additional arrows and do more damage. We have 1 point into Marrow Walkers for an additional skeleton. 1 point into Holy Walkers, that's another additional skeleton. 5 points into Necrotic Conviction, it gives us additional damage up to 75% for our archers. 1 point into Marrow Tap for some health leech and survivability. 2 points into Unbound Necromancy, it gives us base crit chance, but the reason we're putting points in it is for Grave Walkers for another additional skeleton there. We then have Summon Bone Golem. This will be doing all the tanking for us, and we will convert this to fire as well. We have 1 point into Amalgam of Roads. We have 5 points into Charred Bones. It gives us additional melee fire damage for our golem. 1 point into Pyre Golem to convert it to fire. We have 5 points into Amalgam of Sentinels. It gives it additional health and armour. 4 points into Tower of Bones. It means that it actually generates more threat, so it's more likely to attract the enemies. 1 point into Fragments of the Fallen, so this will mean it does additional damage. We then have 1 point into Unnatural Speed, which allows us 2 points into Hunger. So with this, your golem's hits will restore health to both yourself and your golem as well. Summon Skeleton Mage is up next here. We would place 5 points into Cella Mortis. It gives us base crit chance and movement speed for the mages. 1 point into Order of Death to get an additional mage. 2 points into Grey Merchant here, it gives you crit multiplier and health gained on crit. 1 point into Pyromancers to convert them to fire and ignite. 1 point into Inferno, so you can only have your Pyromancers as your summoned skeletal mages. We have 4 points into Splintered Dominion, that's additional projectiles. We have 2 points into Argonautic Speeds, that's additional attack and cast speed. 2 points into Ozian Frenzy, that gives us a chance to get a frenzy when they hit an enemy. 1 point into Forbidden Arcana, and then 1 point into Grave Passage. So when we use this skill, it will actually teleport us as well, and that allows us to drop our teleport skill off our bar, so we can have all our skills on a bar really being all about minions. The next specialisation here is Summon Volatile Zombie, and this will be our main spender. We use this mainly for the kill threshold on it. So we've got 2 points into Forceful Commander, we have 1 point into Daunting Blast, 2 points into Ravenous for additional damage to bosses and rares up to 60% more damage, which is a fair amount. 2 points into Pool of the Grave, that gives you that whopping 16% kill threshold. We have 3 points going into Grave Attunement, it increases the damage on these, it's a more multiplier up to 45%. We have Fervour, so that's an additional 40% damage and increased move speed. 4 points into Army of Rot, we don't want Poison Chance, but we want this here, Flammable Vitae, so that converts the damage on these to fire damage, and you'll use these really whenever you've got any spare mana. The kill threshold is great, but the damage you do is really nice as well. The final skill we have here is Dreadshade, and this will really up your damage. You'll want to cast this on one of your minions on the middle of your pack. You don't want to cast this on your golem, because the minion this is cast on will take a lot more damage, but because you have so many minions they should be lost in the pack and they should still survive. So with this anyway, Spectral Presence is 4 points to increase the area of the buff by 100%. 1 point into Lone Watcher. We have 3 points going into Dying Coven, so that's increased attack and cast speed for minions affected by this. 4 points into Grim Fate, it's increasing the area once again and it gives you 60% more damage, so that is huge. 4 points into Lingering Doom. We have 1 point into Wisdom of the Dead, and that allows us 1 point into Martyrdom. Earlier on in the video we talked about using Vitality for this build, and that's why you can see with this your minions will gain 25 armour per Vitality. So that's everything you need to know about leveling a Necromancer class from levels 1 to 80 in record time in Last Epoch. If the video has been helpful, please do take the time to hit a like, share and subscribe button, and bear in mind there's a ton of other leveling guides available on the channel as well. But thanks for tuning in for this one, stay safe, I'll see you all again soon.